Welcome to Executive Leaders Radio, your spot in the corner office, the radio show where executives share their secrets to success. Executive Leaders Radio.
You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio, broadcasting from Meridian Bank. This is your host, Hank Boyer, with my co-host, Christine Miles of Equip People, Jeff Sheehan, Meridian Bank, Charlie Bernier of ECBM, and Shannon Lane of Newmark, Knight & Frank. We've got a terrific lineup of guests for you today. Christine, would you please give us a rundown of who will be on our show?
Yes, I'd like to thank Meridian Bank for hosting us. We have Tom Garvin, President and CEO of Waverly Heights, Jeff Dill, CEO of Vynamic, John Baxter, CFO of Graham Company, and Gary Smith, President and CEO, Chester County Economic Development.
Fantastic. And our first guest today is Tom Garvin, who's President and CEO of Waverly Heights. Tom, what is Waverly Heights?
Waverly Heights is a life plan community. We serve seniors. Average age probably is that they come in about 80 years old. We've been in existence since 1986, and we provide an exceptional lifestyle for seniors.
How many people live there?
There's about 370 residents between the independent living, about 270 there, and the balance in the healthcare center.
And how did you get started?
So I actually started in the hospitality industry out of school and worked for the Four Seasons Hotel Company, and was given a unique opportunity after rotating through departments there to take a position in the healthcare arena, and specifically in long-term care, running a housekeeping, laundry, and maintenance department at a new nursing facility. Went from there and became a licensed nursing home administrator, and moved on and took over, began the Life Plan Community CEO rank.
So where did you grow up?
So I was born in Atlanta, Georgia, and when I was 8 years old, we moved back to Buxton, where my family was originally from.
Brothers or sisters?
I have one brother, John, who's 2 years older than me.
So what was it like growing up in Atlanta with an older brother?
Well, it was great. What I remember of it, we had a great time. I enjoyed down there. I'm still a University of Georgia fan from my early days there.
Excellent. So something happened in your life relatively early on with your parents. What was it?
Yeah, so my parents split when we were very early, and my father was not ever present in my life. So, and that was sort of the catalyst that ended up resulting in us moving back from the Atlanta area to Bucks County.
So how did that impact you growing up without a father presence?
You know, it was great because I was surrounded by family and influences in my life that really, I think, made me a stronger person, a better leader, a more caring and compassionate individual.
So who was the male influence in your life 8 to 14?
I had two, really. I was very fortunate to be a part of the Big Brothers program growing up, and my big brother's, his name's Bob Weisbeck, is still a very close friend of mine today. And then also I had my uncle, Uncle Paul, who lived locally there in Bucks County, also spent an awful lot of time in my life as a child.
So what did Bob teach you?
You know, Bob was great. We had so much fun together. He taught me a lot of basic life skills. We used to do we participated in all the programs that Big Brothers offered, a lot of team building, and he taught me about family, about life, about school.
And what did Uncle Paul do for a living, and what did he teach you?
My uncle was a real entrepreneur. He actually owned a company in Point Pleasant, New Jersey called Starline Aluminum, and they made aluminum doors and glass glazing, and they screen repairs and what have you.
What was it like? Did you go to work with your uncle?
I did. Both my brother and I, when we were young children, would get in the car with him for the hour and 15-minute drive from the Bucks County area down to Point Pleasant and work in his factory. What
did you learn about work and the business going to work with your uncle at such a young age?
Well, I think it taught me hard work from the very beginning. I was too young to really get involved in the manufacturing end of things that they did. So I would work, and he'd have me sweep the floors and maintain the cleanliness of the plant from a really early age.
And what about your dad? You said he wasn't in your life from the time you were born. So sometimes that's a negative experience, but you have a very positive outlook on that.
Yeah, my theory on that is just that I believe that everything in life happens for a reason. And I think not having a father in my life to provide all those basic fatherly types of instructions allowed me to be, at this point, a better father, a better husband, and a better person in general.
What do you take from that experience to your work with the seniors in your community today?
Well, it just gives me more compassion to make their lives better and more fulfilled. I think that's the most important thing we can do as people and individuals, and that's really what I like to see happen.
Tom, you mentioned you moved when you were 8 years old. Can you tell us what that transition was like?
Sure, it was an interesting time. I remember it very vividly. And when we got back to Bucks County, which again is where my family was from, we moved in and lived with my grandmother for several years. And I made friends in the neighborhood. We used to go out and play kickball and roam the neighborhood for hours on end. And so I made friends fairly easily. And
what was your role in all of that?
My role was really just to be a team player, and we would bring people together. My house was situated very central within the neighborhood, and so we were often the ones kind of coordinating things and bringing people together.
And how does that relate to the way you're running things at Waverly Heights today?
Well, it's a team approach. I'm blessed to be surrounded by a team of great senior level managers and employees, as well as residents and our board. And so my job is to coordinate the board, the residents, and the staff into producing something pretty spectacular.
Tom, you mentioned your brother John. What was your relationship like?
My brother and I have always been very close. We went through a lot of life experiences together, like I said, from early on, and we're still very, very close. We talk often, and I'm very proud of him. He recently ran a 10K, which is the first time in his life that he did that. And so,
Tom, we've talked a lot about the male influences in your life, but what about your mom? Take us back. Tell us a little bit more about her, please.
My mom, to me, is one of the most inspirational people that I could imagine. She went to Emory University in Atlanta. That's how we ended up there, and she graduated as a nurse. However, she was a housewife, and so when the separation, the divorce happened, she picked herself up by the bootstraps, so to speak, and went from being a homemaker selling Amway products and elevated her career to where she ultimately became a hospital CEO and then a senior vice president of corporate and public affairs at Independence Blue Cross.
Tom, watching that growth in your mom's career as a child, goals and expectations must have played an important role.
Oh, absolutely. My mom always was a big-time goal setter and always pushed us to achieve for the next level. I remember vividly my mom writing goals down on an index card and sticking them in her mirror in her bedroom. And she was a very focused and driven woman, and just had great success in her career. And that influenced me tremendously.
Tom, you said in the green room that you were exposed to a lot of people at high levels growing up. What influence did that have on you, watching that?
That really gave me great ease in dealing with people. It didn't matter if they were the CEO or the president of a company or a housekeeper or maintenance person or anything. It didn't matter to me what position someone had. It taught me to respect people no matter who they are and no matter what level they are within an organization. And I was never intimidated by that. And so it helped me develop my people skills.
The other thing notable about your mom piecing all this together is that she really surrounded you with a lot of people. You said in the green room again that you were raised by a village. What village are you bringing together for the community members at Waverly?
Well, the village that I bring together, I hope, is the influence that I had from my family and my close friends, that I can bring that, and it helps me coordinate, the leadership and the staff of the community, because it's a service industry. And so it's something, if I can teach others people skills and hospitality, that creates something special when you're running a life plan community like Waverly Heights.
Did you start at Waverly as a CEO? You came in as the CEO?
I did. I've been there just about 10 years now.
And what was your first job coming into Waverly? You were in the leadership position?
Yeah, well, coming into Waverly, I was the president and CEO, and but prior to that, I was also the executive director of a community called Christ Home Retirement Community that's located in Bucks County.
And what did you have in mind when you started at Christ Home?
I knew I wanted to be around a resort-style setting, meaning independent living, not just the majority of my career was in nursing facilities and assisted living, but the idea of being around independent living is more of a hospitality focus, and that was always my first love. I went to school, my undergraduate degree is in hospitality management, so I was happy to do that.
Tom, you have a family of your own. You're a parent. What has fatherhood taught you about being a more effective CEO?
Fatherhood has been very, very important to me. Being a father and a husband and having strong family, it's taught me values, morals, ethics, drive, and determination. And, I try to impart those traits on my children and take that to work as well and kind of live by the do unto others as you would have done unto you philosophy. And it has led to pretty good things, both personally and professionally.
Employees are certainly like a family. Tell us, what is your website?
Our website is waverlyheightsltd.org.
Give me one more time.
waverlyheightsltd.org.
And we've been speaking with Tom Garvin, President and CEO of Waverly Heights, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. We'll be right back after this Business Spotlight.
Want help building your business with help from this show's CEOs? Our CEOs can help you uncover more opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that. They've succeeded in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars, and some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. The same CEOs you've heard on the show for 10 years may be willing to help you build your business, uncover new opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that, succeeding in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars. And some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com.
We're back, and you're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Hank Boyer, and we'd like to introduce you to our next guest, Jeff Dill, who's CEO of Vynamic. Jeff, what is Vynamic?
Vynamic is a healthcare industry management consulting company. We work across all sectors of the healthcare industry, from life sciences companies to hospital systems to health insurance companies to healthcare technology companies and public health.
Excellent. How large or how small is your organization?
We're just over 160 people. We have about 125 people based in our headquarters in Center City, Philadelphia, and then also 30 people in Boston and a growing team of 6 in London.
Excellent. And how did you get involved with Vynamic?
Yeah, I met our founder of Vynamic, Dan Callista, back in the late 90s when he and I both worked at Accenture together. And he had a vision around a better way to do consulting, and I joined early on with him back in August of 2005.
And you've been there ever since?
That's right.
Excellent. So let's take you back to where you were born and raised. Where was that?
Yeah, I grew up 2 towns south of Hartford, Connecticut, in a town called Rocky Hill.
Brothers or sisters?
Yeah, I have an older sister. She's 2.5 years older than I am, Sarah.
And what did Dad do for a living?
Dad was focused both on kind of math and early computer programming. So he worked at Pratt & Whitney, a division of United Technologies in East Hartford, Connecticut.
Was math an early interest of yours?
I was focused on math, but not quite like my dad, who went on to get his master's in mathematics as well.
And so what did you see in your dad? What was the relationship you had with him?
Yeah, my dad was a great mentor, a role model for me. He coached all of my sports teams growing up, so I kind of learned that aspect of coaching and dedication to your kids through him.
What about your mom? What was her career?
She was an English teacher, and then she moved into teaching English as a second language when I was earlier on in elementary school and into high school.
After she stopped teaching, she did continue in tutoring. How'd that affect you?
Yeah, it was actually a great experience because we'd often have people from different backgrounds, different countries, families who were moving over here and had tough situations. And the achievement I saw in some of these kids that would get tutored in my home from all different types of backgrounds was amazing. So definitely lessons in diversity and seeing how amazing accomplishments can be with people who have difficult, challenging backgrounds.
You mentioned the green room, a story about somebody who actually got a very good SAT score because of your mother's help.
I did. One of her students had come over to this country and had learned English, and within 2 years he got a better SAT score than I did on the English SAT.
So who are you more like, mom or dad?
I'd say I'm somewhere in the middle. I think I got a good enough math skills from my dad and good enough English from my mom, so I'm kind of a blend of both.
Jeff, that as you shared that story in the green room, you said something that you were amazed at what people could achieve. How does that relate to what you do today with Vynamic?
Yeah, I think we're a hardworking group, and I think we like to say that we're strategic yet tactical. So kind of no job being too small. So we like to pride ourselves on rolling up our sleeves and getting into any job that you need to get into.
Are you amazed what people can achieve when you put the right environment in place?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at Vynamic, we're focused on creating both a healthy culture for our team and then also having our clients achieve that healthy culture outcome as well.
And one of the things you also mentioned in the green room is your dad wasn't always having fun at work. He was a hardworking man, but it wasn't always fun. I've been to your offices. They're fun. They're creative. There's colors on the wall, and you take that into your organizations. Why is fun so important?
Yeah, we actually have a list of 10. We call them I am commitments, and one commitment we just rolled out to the company is actually I am having fun at work. And because I think it's just so important.
How did it affect you when you were younger, watching your dad not have fun at work?
Yeah, I think he had fun overall in life, but I could tell that at times in his job he was in the grind, and there's the corporate dynamics and politics, and having the chance to join a company early on and form a company that didn't have those types of politics and had fun and had a healthy culture was something I was passionate about.
Jeff, in the green room, you mentioned your father had a heart attack at a relatively young age. How did that impact you?
Yeah, I think seeing my dad go through that when I was, young was definitely a jarring experience. And seeing how he was able to change his lifestyle so significantly after his heart attack was amazing to me, and shift to a healthier lifestyle. And he's still alive and well at 75 years old. And so that was a huge moment in my life.
Jeff, what sports were you involved in as a kid?
I was passionate about mostly basketball and soccer. I did track as well, but basketball and soccer were my two primary sports.
And was there a common role you played on both of those teams?
For both of the sports I played, I was captain of both of those teams, and I was a guard in basketball and a center midfielder in soccer.
And what did you learn from those experiences in being captain of those teams?
I mean, I loved the concept of coaching and helping others and of teamwork, and those two sports just really were in my wheelhouse from a teamwork perspective.
And how does that relate to what you're doing at Vynamic today?
Yeah, we actually call, at Vynamic, we try to stay away from the word employee, and we call everyone team members. And so part of that is pulling through that kind of team environment of the company.
You talked about your dad's health, and the environment at Vynamic and for the companies you serve is more than just about physical health. It's also about emotional health as well, and bringing those concepts together. So one of the things you do, I believe, is bring forums together to help employees share some of their experiences and that emotional health. Why younger, growing up, did you see the importance of that? Why are you bringing that into the workplace today?
Yeah, I think we've, at Vynamic, we've found a passion around kind of vulnerability-based trust. And so, when I was younger, I felt like you could make stronger connections when you got to know people at a deeper level. And so as I've pulled that through to Vynamic, we've been rolling out these groups of 10 people that get together on a monthly basis and get to know each other at a deeper level. And I think that can really create stronger teams and stronger results for our clients.
You mentioned that grandparents played an important role in your life. Tell us about your grandparents.
Yeah, my grandparents on my mom's side, they both lived to 95 years old and were huge influences on my life, and went to their homes on holidays. And on my dad's side, my grandmother was around until I was a junior in college, and I always view them as such important figures in my development.
What did you do for making money when you were a kid? How young were you when you started making money?
Yeah, probably in the 10 to 12-year-old range. I did all sorts of odd jobs. I reffed basketball and soccer. I worked for the Parks and Rec department in my town, weeding or mowing lawns or all types of odd jobs.
What did you do different than the other kids when you were doing these odd jobs, mowing lawns and so forth?
Yeah, I think I worked hard. I tried to do a really good job. I was meticulous to the point of maybe overdoing it with my paper route. I think I almost got an ulcer at one point when I was 12. I just wanted to do a good job at everything I did.
And you mentioned something about you were cornering people in the neighborhood, making sure they wanted you on the job, right?
Yeah, I wanted to make sure I had 4 or 5 lawns that I did, and the competition was stiff, so you had to make sure you did a good job and cornered the market.
How are you cornering your employees and your clients to make sure that you're with them?
Yeah, part of our articulated purpose is we believe there's a better way. And so I think when I joined Vynamic, that purpose really struck me, as there's a better way to have a sustainable career within consulting, and also a better way for healthcare and a better way to lead work with clients.
Your dad coached you in a lot of your sports, and now today you're coaching your kids. What does that mean to to you to be able to do that?
Yeah, it's been it was so important to me, and seeing my dad get so involved in everything I did. I have 3 daughters, and I coach them in basketball and soccer all for the past 10 years.
What are your daughters teaching you about being a more effective CEO?
Yeah, now I have 3 teenage daughters, so I'm learning a lot about patience, and and it's been a great experience, and I have a great relationship with my daughters.
Do they come into work?
They've actually been to my office a number of times, and they're getting to the age where they kind of getting to sense of what I do every day. But earlier it was just a really cool space to come to and walk on treadmill desks and eat a lot of cool snacks.
And so, what was your ride home with them like? What did you guys talk about?
Yeah, they sometimes are amazed because we have such a healthy culture. They want to know what I do, and it's become a more healthy environment for me to talk to about them with work.
Jeff, I'm stuck on this idea that your mom was teaching a second language to individuals, and it seems to me that you're shifting the language of organizations and cultures. So what's the connection there?
Yeah, we talk about kind of reimagining consulting, and that's kind of it's a different way to do things, and
it's a different way to speak, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Interesting that your company's name is Vynamic. What's the V stand for?
Yeah, we often say to know Vynamic is to know what the V stands for, and the V stands for values and vitality, and the rest is really all about change. And part of our work is helping clients, lead through change.
How young were you when that issue of values first showed itself?
Yeah, I think my parents instilled that in me from the get-go, so very early on.
And how do you get people in your company excited about that vision?
Yeah, I think a lot of people who are coming from different employers who maybe don't put as much emphasis on a healthier culture, and maybe they just feel like they're a number in a larger organization. I think to come to Vynamic, everyone at Vynamic actually picks their own color when they join the company, and it expresses the individuality and how they're thriving with the freedom to apply their unique strengths.
And what's your website?
Vynamic.com.
One more time?
Vynamic.com.
And we've been speaking with Jeff Dill, CEO of Vynamic. We're here on Executive Leaders Radio with my co-hosts, Christine Miles of Equip People, Jeff Sheehan of Meridian Bank, Charlie Bernier of ECBM, and Shannon Lane of Newmark Frank Knight. Don't forget to visit executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. We'll be right back after this Business Spotlight. We're back, and you're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Hank Boyer, and we'd like to introduce you to John Baxter, who's CFO of Graham Company. What's Graham Company?
Graham Company is a commercial insurance agency with offices in New York City, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C.
What makes that organization special?
Graham specializes in working with large companies with complicated risk structures.
So it sounds like it's a high-touch kind of thing?
Yes, it is. We focus on customer service.
How big or how small is the organization?
We have approximately 200 employees.
And how did you get involved there?
Probably sometime last year, I was considering a move in my career, and spoke to a friend who knew that they were looking to hire a new CFO.
And you were a CFO before then in a different industry, so why Graham? Why did that make sense for you?
For years, I've purchased commercial insurance, and I was familiar with the model and very interested in the model. In addition, I've always been interested in the service model.
Excellent. Let's take you back to where you grew up, and where was that?
I grew up in a small town outside of Reading, Pennsylvania, by the name of Jacksonwald.
That's farming country, right?
Yes, very rural.
And so what was it like growing up in Jacksonwald?
It was great. Spent a lot of time outside, wandering in the wilderness and the cornfields and everything up there.
Uh-huh. Brothers or sisters?
I have a younger sister that's 3 years younger.
And what was growing up in the house like? What was the environment?
I had 2 loving parents, my mother and father. They were very structured in the way they brought us up, but they also gave us the freedom.
What do you mean by structured?
Structured, we had a lot of rules, but at the same time, they instilled a lot of values and morals in us.
Like what?
Some of the values, I would say, are trust, honor, and respect, and hard work.
And how did you see those values being lived out in your parents?
Just every day. My mom, working with the church, working with the elders, volunteering with other organizations and with people. And then just with my father, I'd see him, he'd leave the house before 7 o'clock every day as a salesperson. He wouldn't return till after 5 o'clock. He would then spend some time with the family, and then he would go back into his office till 9 or 10 o'clock at night.
And what made him effective as a salesperson?
He really cared for the relationships. He really enjoyed talking to people.
How long was he with his employer?
He was there for 42 full years as a salesperson.
Wow, that's unheard of. What did Mom do for a living?
Mom was a homemaker for the first part of our childhood, and then when we reached high school, she became an accountant.
Is there any tie with you being a CFO to seeing her evolve into the accounting field?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I was curious about it when I was growing up, but a lot of it had to do in my formative years in college. I really took a kin to numbers and enjoyed working with numbers.
So you're really good at math, you said earlier in the green room, but you came to the organization because of the boutique nature and that the high touch for a smaller number of clients. So you're a CFO, right?
Yes.
Yet you're talking about the people. That's not necessarily what we always hear about with CFOs versus the numbers. Why do you care so much about people? How young were you when that started to show up?
It really started with my mother and father. My mother was very emotionally connected with people. I saw that firsthand. And then my father, he really valued the relationships that he formed in his business work.
Was he high touch in his work?
He was. He was constantly going out to clients. To this day, I still run into people within the banking industry that know who he was.
And how does that make you feel?
I'm very proud of my father.
The traits you learned from your father in 42 years of working and watching him put in long hours every night, how does that connect with what you do today and your role as a C-level guy?
I'd have to say it's just a commitment to getting things done and a commitment to winning and working with the team. That's what's really, driven me to this.
John, earlier in the green room, you mentioned that church played an important role in your life growing up. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I mean, the church came in, and what it did is it reinforced the values of honor and respect and doing good for other human beings.
And how do you carry that with you today?
I bring that to the office every day. I really enjoy working with the people. We have in our office, we have a very team-focused environment. We are ESOP owned, so the employee shareholders are everything in the organization, and I enjoy that.
You mentioned in the green room a story falling under the category of wandering, exploring as a child into your freedom. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. In the summer days when we lived in Jacksonwald, my mother would, kick us out of the house at 8 o'clock and have us go explore in the woods and cornfields. The only rules were, don't get in trouble. 2 was be home by noon for lunch and then be home by 5 for dinner. And a few times we ran across some old cars and some old abandoned farms, and there were a few friends wanted to take some memorabilia from those farms and cars, and I always said, hey, steer away from that.
What did you hear your mom and dad saying in the background of your head while these incidents happened?
It comes down to it's not right. It's not the right thing to do.
How does that relate to how you're serving your clients?
We, at Graham, we hire intelligent people and we come up with complicated solutions for complex risk models. So it's all about the commitment of the employees to solving those solutions for our customers.
In the green room, you mentioned that you played sports as a young man, and there was some influences in your life with that by playing sports, some certain people you related to? Coaches
I had a great wrestling coach in high school. He really guided me. He taught me about grit and focus and determination.
And do you think that's helped you a lot here? I mean, how do you relate that?
It definitely has. It definitely has, and focusing on higher, loftier goals and moving the team along. I'm in an individualistic role in some respects, but most of it's team oriented and bringing
John,
the team.
you told
along.
a story in the green room where you ran track, again an individual sport, but you said it was really more about the team winning. So if somebody was running faster or could run faster in the track on your team, what would you do?
I was never really great at track, so I was like the third or fourth runner, and if the other runner, the number one guy, was behind you, you moved out of the way for him, and you just didn't question it.
So you would step out of the way and not question it?
Yeah, you would move out to the outside lane and let him have the inside track because...
Wow, that's a very unselfish thing to do as a team member.
How do you instill that value in your organization where it's not all about the glory, it's about getting the job done for your customers?
It's really, it's the communication with the employees and then stepping back and listening and actually, leading by example within our organization.
John, how was school for you? So you were involved in sports. How were you as a student?
As a student, I was, an average student. I actually struggled a little bit in the elementary school days and junior high days.
Why is that?
Mainly because I have mild ADHD.
So as a kid, you were kind of an underdog in the classroom.
Yes. I was always, looking out the window, staring out, wishing I was outside as opposed to listening to the teacher.
So in your business now, you deal with the largest, most complicated risks. Is that what you said?
Yes.
And so how does that underdog quality help serve those customers and clients in a better way?
It's because we're a 200-person agency, and we're targeting, or we're actually going into a market that's dominated by large multinational companies that have thousands and thousands of employees.
That could just eat them up quickly.
Correct.
So you're helping the underdogs survive, win, thrive?
Yes.
So why do they stay with you if they can go do business with the bigger guys?
Because we care. We provide phenomenal customer service.
So when you're there with an important client meeting, what do you hear mom and dad whispering in your ear about what you need to do to make that customer be a customer for life?
Really care for those people. It's caring for your customers, protecting their assets, and protecting the lives of their employees.
John, how did exploring? I'm imagining you out in the country exploring all day. How does that help you solve problems today?
It really helps me think outside the box. So,
what do you mean?
Cliched, but in reality, I just don't sit in the CFO role. I'm always thinking about how to improve operations, how to improve, the sales pipeline, things of that nature, and I always lend support to the other leaders of the company.
Did you ever go to work with your dad, John?
I did. He would take me out on the road at times.
And then what did you learn watching him and being on the road with him?
I just learned that he was all about the number of stops. He wanted to meet as many customers as possible in a day.
So you need to measure, pay attention, look at what's happening.
Yes, and that was important with him. And then at the same time, once he got there, he spent quality time with his customers. And they always had a smile on their face. I do remember that.
So if you could go back and talk to your 8 to 14-year-old self, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give yourself?
I would, do exactly what you've learned from your parents. Stick with the values and the morals that they provided you.
Thank you so much, John. What's the website of your organization?
GrahamCo.com.
And your name is John Baxter. You're the CFO of Graham Co. Here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. We'll be right back after this break.
Want to help building your business with help from this show's CEOs? Our CEOs can help you uncover more opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that. They've succeeded in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars, and some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. The same CEOs you've heard on the show for 10 years may be willing to help you build your business, uncover new opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that, succeeding in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars. And some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com.
We're back and you're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Hank Boyer, with my co-host, Christine Miles of Equip People, Jeff Sheehan of Meridian Bank, our host, Charlie Bernier, ECBM, and Shannon Lane, Newmark, Knight & Frank. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Gary Smith, who is President and CEO of the Chester County Economic Development Council. What does the Economic Development Council do, Gary?
We are a 60-year-old private, not-for-profit business and community development organization that supports the economy of Chester County.
And what does that look like? What are you guys doing?
We help companies with 3 basic ingredients in life. Everybody needs shelter in their capacity, so do businesses. So I'm in the real estate development business. They need capital to run their business, so we provide the capitalization of companies. And they need good, qualified workforce. So we're identifying the workforce and for employers of our county.
So how did you get involved with the Economic Development Council?
This was my first job. I came right out of college. I was a local product of the community. I grew up here in Chester County, Pennsylvania. Attended local schools. I applied for this job. I was hired as the assistant director, and there were 3 of us at the time of the organization when I came on board in January of 1976. So nearly 44 years ago, I've been working here. Today, we've been able to grow the organization to about 35 folks. We provide an array of different services, and actually, we've grown our services outside of Chester County.
And so where did you grow up?
Grew up outside of Downingtown, Pennsylvania, a product of the school district of Downingtown, a little community called Marshallton, and still live there today with my family.
And that's Chester County as well. So you've been a lifelong resident.
Correct.
And tell us a little bit about where you grew up. What kind of environment was it?
It was a family dairy farm. My father was a farmer. We had milk cows for a living, and I was the only son and did a lot of things that only sons did on a farm.
So what did your dad do?
He was a dairy farmer, so he milked cows for a living and sold milk as the product. And we were producing milk, and we produced all our feed sources to provide the support for the cattle. And it was a 24/7, 365-day event.
He was a first generation coming over from Ireland.
Correct.
How did that impact you growing up?
Yeah, it was interesting. As a young man, I didn't think much about it, but as time went on, I remembered the fact that his father was a farmer and his father was a farmer, and we always had sort of a strong work ethic in the family of taking care of responsible stewardship responsibilities and tendering and raising crops or tending to cattle and just being a responsible community leader. My dad also was very much involved with the community initiatives locally, so I saw a public service activity of him. He was a supervisor in our township and was involved in governance.
So when you were growing up, Gary, what age did you start milking cows and running that process?
Well, it started off basically just doing all the feeding, manure scraping, all the things that young guys would do in a barn, and just taking care of cattle. And then started milking cattle for my dad when he would want to take a day off or something with my mom. That was a full responsibility. I did that.
So I'm imagining like milking a cow. Was that a manual process? How did that?
We had machines. We had 3 machines. We would run so you would take care of the 3 machines and alternate back and forth from cow to cow, and it was a tedious process, but it was something that took several hours to do every day, twice a day.
Twice a day, several hours a day. And you described in the green room that you had to really be on top of things because the cows could get sick, or there was a term you used.
You have to be very attentive to detail, and I think just the situation, be very observant of what's happening with the animal itself, the nature around us, the weather patterns of the day, the climate, the seasons of the year. Everything is predictable upon, in agriculture, we're working here with the outside
So as a young boy, you're paying attention to a lot of things. How does that impact how you help your companies and entrepreneurs today?
Well, as I said, I kind of nurture. I'm a nurturer. So in order to do that, I also I think I am a sower, and I try to do a lot of things attending this community of Chester County, growing companies, making sure they're healthy, they're content, and they're happy. Just like our cows in our herd in our barn, if we're happy cows, they're producing cows. Same thing with our businesses in Chester County. We want to make sure they're healthy and producing economic prosperity for others in our community.
Gary, can you tell us a little bit about your mom and what she was like when you were growing up?
Certainly. My mother was not from a farm background. When she married my father, she moved out into the country. It was very foreign for her. She was a registered nurse in a hospital in a city, and she adjusted well. She gave up that job, raised my sister and myself, and then went back into visiting nurses and ultimately retired as a school nurse.
And what did you learn from her that you bring with you to work every day?
I think Mom was a good influence in my life. She was more attentive to some of the school needs that I had, supported me, helped me type some project papers that I had to do and things of that nature. So she was a good role mentor for me as far as showing diligence, and she was socially very active in a lot of community groups as well.
She made a lot. Oh, I'm sorry, Shannon. She made a lot of sacrifices, didn't she, to come out and live on the farm?
She did, yes, because it was an adjustment for her. She was a very socially oriented person, and she had a lot of friends. And my dad had a lot of friends that were not farm friends. They were all corporate people who lived in corporate environments and belonged to corporate social clubs and the like. So it was a different type of transition for her.
And in the green room, you mentioned that your mom got you involved in Cub Scouts, and then you went on to be an Eagle Scout?
Yes, that's true. So I was in Cub Scouting and also became a Boy Scout and was an Eagle Scout, and my two sons are both Eagle Scouts.
What did those experiences teach you?
Scouting is a really important part of it. I think, I was not athletically given. We had a rural community. There wasn't a socially organized athletic organization, so I got involved with Scouting, and there was a community outreach my parents felt was important for us to get some acclimation to other young people my age, and it taught me a lot of life values as trustworthy, loyal, all the Scout oath, the Scout law, I still carry with me every day.
Gary, you mentioned family a lot, and did your grandparents have an influence on you?
They did. So, unfortunately, my grandfathers passed before I was of age to really remember them. My grandmothers, though, lived to be older ladies and passed in life. And my grandmother on my father's side was a Christian woman, and I learned a lot of my beliefs today, and my faith in Christ is my Lord and Savior from her. And it's changed my life, and it has given me some really stability in my life to show that we are here for a reason, and we're here to be good stewards of responsibility that we have been given. And I believe we have the opportunities to really serve others, and that's kind of what I have.
Gary, I've known you many years, and you're absolutely a high-energy guy. Is that something that you've learned from your father, inherited from your father? Where did that come from?
That's a good question, Jeff. I think, I've observed Dad is his father also passed early in life on the farm. So my dad, and he had an older brother, served in World War II. So as a young man, 11th grade in school, he took care of the family and milked a lot of cows. So he always had a strong work ethic. And so when he got married to my mother and bought his own farm, that was sort of shedded onto me by just observing him. I didn't have another brother, so I kind of used my dad as my mentor as I grew up.
Gary, it seems like that showing up just is part of who you are, and that you learn that you show up on the farm, you show up. How do you help your entrepreneurs show up differently from all the things that you've learned? What do you
The entrepreneurs, companies that I work with today are very diverse and interesting. We work with everyone from Amish farmers that are starting their businesses all the way to very sophisticated companies like Vanguard in our county, and I've had the pleasure of working with these companies in all their various stages of growth. So watching the diversity of different companies and maintaining that diversity of our economy is very important to the county. It's economic health, and we spend a lot of our time working with a diversified group of people who are very influential with me. And my peers, if you will, my board of directors represent a cross-section of those industries in our county.
Gary, work ethic is a common thread through your whole life, it appears. Growing up 24/7, 365 days a year on the farm, how's that transition to your work life and your 44 years of experience with the Development Council?
Interesting question. I never look at a clock. People are sort of work-oriented to clock time. We get up and we go to bed, and you work. So I don't even know what time it is. I just have things to do, so I'm very task-oriented. But I also want to make sure, so at the end of the day, I've accomplished or not. If I have not accomplished or not, I'm going to go out and start doing some more things, whether it's physical work or mental work.
Gary, one more thing quickly. You shared in the green room that when you were very young, your parents had you give people tours of the farm.
Yes. Well, one of the things growing up, being sort of in a rural environment and not having a lot of neighbors and other kids my age to play with, one of the things that my parents thought was important to really be socially interactive. So we had a private dairy we sent our milk to down on the main line, and a lot of the main line folks from the Philadelphia metro area would come out to the country on Sunday afternoon drives. And as they came out to watch where their milk was coming from, they would come out and visit. And I had to host those families and take them through the farm and show them where the crops were, the variety of crops, and the cows.
You're still hosting families, aren't you?
Thank you. I still do that today, I think, in this county. So I still work in hosting companies to come into Chester County, welcome here, grow here. If you live here, create a business here, and keep paying attention of those situations where companies want to prosper and grow in our community.
So now you're, if I understand correctly, you're a third-generation farmer.
Correct.
So there's continuity there. You've been in your job 44 years. There's continuity there. What message does that send to the businesses about being continuous here in Chester County?
We are very entrepreneurial. We're very nimble as an organization. Because we are not a public entity, we are a private sector entity driven by private sector initiatives. So therefore, we are very helpful in trying to grow companies and making sure that there's a diversity here.
And what's the website of your organization?
It's cceconomicdevelopment.com.
We've been speaking with Gary Smith, who's president and CEO of Chester County Economic Development Council, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Christine, can you give us a quick rundown of who's been on the show today?
Sure. We had Tom Garvin, President and CEO, Waverly Heights, Jeff Dill, CEO of Vynamic, John Baxter, CFO of Graham Company, and Gary Smith, President and CEO of the Chester County Economic Development. I'd like to thank Meridian Bank for hosting us today.
I'd like to thank all of my co-hosts, Christine Miles of Equip People, Jeff Sheehan of Meridian Bank, Charles Bernier of ECBM, Shannon Lane of Newmark Knight Frank for giving me a hand to help structure the questions today and giving our listening audience an entertaining and educational show. And I'd like to thank our listening audience for listening. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a radio show. Don't forget to visit executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our Executive Leaders Radio. Thanks for joining us today. Have a terrific day.